Okay, guys, we're going to move on to chapter 13. This is urinary system diseases and disorders. This is a longer chapter. Usually, what I'm finding is that a lot of these take a lot longer to get through in a classroom type setting because people stop and have questions, or people want to tell stories about somebody that they know that had something similar. So these have been going pretty quick, but we'll see how long it takes to get through this one. All right, anatomy and physiology. You have your kidneys, your ureters, your bladder, and your urethra. Your kidneys are what remove waste products from your bloodstream. Your urine should normally be clear but slightly yellow to gold, free from sediments, have a distinct odor but doesn't smell bad. There's a certain number of specific gravity, which is the amount of stuff that it should have in it. It should be a pH of 6, and it should have changes in value, or changes in values would indicate a disease. There are different signs and symptoms, blood in your urine. There's different things here. You don't need to have these memorized, but just anytime you're going more than often, or you're not going as much, or you're having a lot of nighttime awakenings, different things like that, pain with urination, anything like that is a common sign and symptom of a problem, blood in your urine. They're going to do a urinalysis, a culture and sensitivity to see if there's any bacteria in there and what it's sensitive to, blood tests, and a KUB is where they look at your kidney, ureter, and bladder. Sometimes they'll go in and shoot dye up in there and see how it actually flows through the kidneys, ureter, and bladder. They might do an IBP, a cystogram, cystoscopy, bladder and kidney biopsy, and sometimes you will have to be catheterized. There's a cystoscopy. Doesn't look very fun. UTIs are a broad diagnosis covering infections of the urinary tract and the urethra, bladder, and kidney. It's most often caused by E. coli. That's the most common bacteria found in the UTIs. Can anybody guess why E. coli might be the most common caused bacteria? It usually is from not wiping well, and that's why younger children typically tend to get UTIs a little bit more. E. coli can be found in your stool, and so sometimes wiping back to front for women and girls can cause a UTI. They are more common in females because the urethra is shorter and the opening is closer to the rectum. Some, like I just talked about, females have improper toileting habits. Vaginal secretions can harbor bacteria, while male secretions have an antibacterial effect. I didn't really know that until I started teaching this course. Sexual intercourse can cause trauma to the urethra and the bladder, and it can lead to inflammation and infection. And pregnant females are more susceptible due to the pressure of the uterus and the urinary tract. They're going to do urinalysis, like we said, and a culture of the urine specimen to see what, and then a sensitivity to see what it's sensitive to. And they're usually going to do antibiotics. Cystitis is just inflammation of the bladder, also known as a bladder infection. There is such a thing as honeymoon cystitis, which occurs in females as they become sexually active. They're usually going to treat this with antibiotics, and they might be doing other things like pyridium, which you don't need to know this, but it can cause your urine to turn reddish orange and stain the clothing. After treatment, they are going to do a culture and sensitivity to determine the elimination of the bacteria. Pyelitis is an inflammation of the kidney pelvis, and it's the result of an ascending infection from the bladder. They're going to do rapid diagnosis and treatment to prevent the spread of the infection. This one can be spread, and it's not so good when it is. Pyelonephritis is due to ascending or an infection, and it can affect one or both kidneys, and it's going to have a sudden onset. They're going to have side pain and blood in their urine, and it's treated effectively with antibiotics. This one, I have such a hard time saying. Glomerular nephritis is an acute problem with the kidney. It's an inflammation of the glomerulus, or the filtering unit of the kidney. And when I was in class and I was able to show them the glomerulus is the filtering part of the kidney. It kind of acts like a colander, if you want to look at it that way, and it holds on to what it needs to, and it lets go of what it doesn't need to. It's the most common kidney disease that occurs 1 to 4 weeks after a strep infection. It's not. This can actually be very damaging, and as it's an antigen-antibody reaction, and it's caused by the immune system, and can actually cause lots and lots of problems. When it's acute, they're going to have side pain, they're going to have fever, they're not going to feel well, they're not going to be hungry, they're going to have swelling around their eyes and their ankles, and blood in their urine, and they're going to likely not be going to the bathroom very often. They're going to need things for medications for fever. Excuse me. They're going to need a diuretic to help them go to the bathroom. You're going to want to restrict their salt intake and protein intake and fluid restriction. And you want them to get on antibiotics for the treatment of the strep infection. Chronic glomerulonephritis is repeated bouts of acute type that lead to a chronic condition. And this can also cause hypertension, which is high blood pressure. And what else do you need to know here? You want to work on controlling their high blood pressure, and they may require dialysis or kidney transplant. Anytime you go to mess with the kidneys, you want to be careful. Kidneys are really, really critical in our day-to-day function, and people don't realize how critical they are until they quit working. And so we do have 2, thankfully, and most people anyway, and it's important that we take good care of them. And usually, unfortunately, when people have problems with 1, they have problems with 2, and it's not, it's usually just a problem with your kidneys, not just your kidney. Kidney stones, however, can be in 1 kidney, and they are formed in the pelvis of the kidney, and these people are going to have pain, and blood in their urine. My sibling told me that it was worse than childbirth, the pain of a kidney stone. And there's a picture for you guys. Kidney stones or renal calculi is diagnosed by an IVP or a KUB. We talked about those earlier, and a renal ultrasound. Treatment's going to be pain medication, increasing fluid intake. They want to strain your urine to see if you've passed it. Lithotripsy is just a part of a way of doing surgery for this. And this is a video on kidney stones, and it's very, very interesting. Polycystic disease is an inherited disease causing enlargement of the kidneys due to grape-like cysts. It's a slow progressive disease, and you get lots of back pain, blood in your urine, recurrent UTIs. Treatment is going to be, you're going to want to manage the high blood pressure and the urinary tract infection, and these people are going to need dialysis and a kidney transplant. Renal failure is the failure of the kidneys to cleanse the blood of waste products. You can have acute or chronic kidney failure. Symptoms are going to be, you're not really going to have a lot of symptoms until their 75% of the kidney function is destroyed. Acute symptoms, though, you can have infertility, impotence, bone weakness, fractures, and they're going to diagnose this. One of the ways they're going to diagnose this is by a BUN and creatinine. It's just blood tests to let us know how your kidneys are functioning. They're going to manage the cause of the failure. Why are the kidneys failing? That's what they're going to look at and try to reverse it. They're going to limit their salt and their protein. They're going to measure how much they're drinking and then how much they're urinating. They're going to give them medications to control their blood pressure, diuretics to help them urinate more, and antibiotics. Long-term treatment, they're likely going to need dialysis and a kidney transplant. Now, you can live without a kidney, so a lot of times you can live with 1 kidney is what I should say. And so a lot of times you'll see family donating to somebody. So if you have a family member who is in acute kidney failure or chronic kidney failure actually, and they're going to need a kidney transplant, a lot of times family will step up and donate rather than watch their family member die. Cancer of the kidneys, risk factor is cigarette smoking. It's a frequent metastasis to the liver, brain, bone before symptoms appear. They're going to have painless blood in the urine. They're going to have back pain, fever. I know of one lady who passed away from a carcinoma of the kidney that had chest pain was her main symptom. They're going to do a KUB, an IVP, a CT scan, and biopsy. The way they found this lady's cancer was they did a bone scan that showed the kidney cancer. They're going to remove the kidney, do chemotherapy and radiation, but we may not be able to prevent it. That's just the way. We want to control risk factors like not smoking, increasing fruits and vegetables, controlling blood pressure, staying active, but I think what they're seeing is that in some people, they do all those things and they still get it. Urinary incontinence is just the loss of urine flow control. This happens quite often in women after they've had children and in women over the age of 65. There are different types. There's stress incontinence, urge incontinence, and overflow incontinence. They're going to do a urinalysis, a blood test. They're going to do a post-void residual volume, which basically just has, sometimes people, they'll have them urinate and then do like, I think it's an ultrasound that like shows how much urine is still left. They do this with men too when they have prostate problems to try to see, is the bladder completely empty after urinating. So treatment's going to depend on the type of incontinence, and it may include behavioral techniques. I don't know how many of you ladies have heard of Kegel exercises, that you should be doing them. This is to help with incontinence. Transitional cell carcinoma of the bladder. This is the most common cancer, neoplasm of the urinary tract. It arises from the lining of the bladder. This is more common in men after the age of 60. Cigarette smoking, again, is a risk factor. Usually it's diagnosed by biopsy. Treatment depends on the stage of the tumor. They may do a resection of part of the bladder, and sometimes they'll have to remove it. There are different other kinds of trauma, straddle injuries, neurogenic bladder. I can't remember the name of it. If I think of it, I'll post it. But it's a movie that includes a gentleman who was paralyzed, and he had a neurogenic bladder. And essentially they can die if somebody doesn't realize what's going on. Here's some other rare diseases. You're not going to be tested on these. Whoops. And on aging, urinary incontinence is a common problem. And then for men, prostatic hypertrophy is a common problem. Essentially what that means is their prostate can either become inflamed or it can shrink. And when it shrinks, it can cause some problems with them getting their urinary flow going, or when they have prostate, like an enlarged prostate, they will have problems with getting their urine started. They might have pain. They might not get all of their urine out. So just remember that prostate problems in older men and urinary incontinence is a common problem in older women. That's all for that one. If you have any questions, let me know. And then you still have, I think, 4 or 5 more chapters left in this unit.